Succulent by Renegade Games. This is a completely abstract game, really. It has as a theme a succulent garden, but it could be pretty much anything else. The point is we're collecting resources to try to acquire cards that will score us points, and we're trying to fill in spaces on our personal board that also will give us points. And this is how you mainly acquire points. Highest score wins in the end. The game is for 2 to 4 players, and in these times of pandemic, I only played it with 2 players, with my 2 daughters, but one at a time. I don't know, for some reason I wasn't able to get them both at the table at the same time. They both enjoyed it, but also they weren't so crazy about it. I like it very much. I think I'll really enjoy playing the game in the future when I have game night again. So as of now, I can only comment on the game as a 2-player game played with kids that are presently 8 and almost 9 years of age. That also tells you at the age they can play it is simply enough that they can do it, but at least my daughters personally enjoyed it only relatively. Now, here you have the succulent garden made of these double-sided tiles that you shuffle and you place randomly at the beginning of the game, but you always have this grid here with the 2 central tiles face up, and these are the tiles around it in this exact position face down. Each player has a personal greenhouse, which is a tile of this kind, which, as you can see, is different. There are different flowers, different plants in different boxes for different players. I'm gonna put it here for now, just so we have everything in a single shot, but of course this should be in your personal area usually. Each player also has an adorable garden token and a number of flowers. Then we also have flower beds, and there are flower beds of 3 kinds: the small, the medium, and the large. 1, 2, or 3 holes. The game is pretty simple. Basically, each turn you take 1 or 2 actions, and the action will either be to collect flower beds or to place flower beds. When you place flower beds, you get to collect cuttings, represented by these tokens here. There you go. There's also this one, but just to give you a sense, nice wooden tokens. And then after you take your action to collect flower beds or place flower beds to collect that stuff, you can also, as a free action, complete a project. The projects are represented by these cards here. There is a line of them always available. When one is completed, a new one comes on the deck. On top you have the number and type of cuttings that you need to discard to complete the project. The big number is the number of victory points you will score at the end of the game. Sometimes it's just a specific number, 9, 7, or 10. Sometimes it's variable, 1 victory point for each cutting of that color that you have at the end of the game. And then there may also be a one-time benefit that you gain when you complete that project by discarding again the correct number and type of cuttings. For example, I may acquire a small flower bed here. I may get 2 droplets, and we'll see what those are in a little bit. So, those 2 actions, remember, collect flower beds or place flower beds. The collect flower bed action is pretty simple. You take your gardener from wherever it is and you place it on one of those projects in the little box that you see there in the bottom right corner. And when you do so, you collect the corresponding flower beds. In this case, for example, if I put my gardener there, I collect a large and a small flower bed and I put them in my personal area. So after a while, you have a little bit of a collection there. And that's for that action, pretty simple. An action is a little more involved is to place those flower beds, but not that much. To place a flower bed, then you take a flower bed from your collection and you put it anywhere where there isn't another flower bed, so you don't overlap them with other flower beds. They don't hang out of the area, it doesn't have any plants, so it needs to cover plants specifically. When you put one down, you collect a cutting of the type that you just covered, red, light blue we call it, and orange. Also, if there are any droplets, see that droplet there, you collect one of these droplet tokens. So in this case, for example, for that, I will collect these resources here. No, not that one. I got the wrong one. These resources here. One is tricky. These resources here. 3 is the charm. And that's it. Thank you very much. The droplet I'm gonna put in my personal greenhouse on any droplet area that is empty, just like so. And also another thing that I do after I place the tile, I put one of my flowers right there. Each flower bed, as you can see, has a single hole that is perfectly round, and that is where you place your flowers, because the flowers have this thing here that connects with that one, and so they just stay up as magic. They don't fall. The forces with this game. See, I was able to attract the flower with the force. So, other things. If I'm the last player to cover a droplet, what I get is also to flip one of the other mats, so that's how you open the other sections of the garden, and I get to place for free a small flower bed anywhere available, not necessarily in the section I just opened, but there's only if I do have one available. Other things, when you place a new flower bed, all players that have a flower adjacent to your flower bed, including yourself, will collect a droplet. So for example, if I'm gonna place a new flower bed there, I'm gonna collect a purple cutting, black cutting, light blue cutting, a droplet because a droplet is there, and a droplet because I have a flower adjacent to the new flower bed. So after a while, you will collect those droplets, you'll collect those things, etc., etc., etc. And this is basically the idea of how you get those flower beds and how you put them down to collect cuttings and droplets. Then it's finally time, again, to buy those projects. We already explained, after you take your main action, you can acquire one of those projects by discarding the right cuttings, either the actual tokens or by discarding droplets. If you have a section on your personal board which is all full, you can discard the droplets in that section to pay for a cutting of that kind. So if I discard these two, it counts as if I had discarded a black cutting. When you complete a project, you take that card and you put it in your personal area. Now, if you collect a card because you complete a project that has a gardener on top of it, whether yours or somebody else's, the gardener goes back to that player. And the player that owns the gardener gets a super magic giant dark blue droplet that they put in their personal area. That still can be used to pay for cuttings, but the good thing is that it never goes away. The small droplets, you have to remove them when you spend them, but these big droplets always stay there. So after a while, later in the game, when you have several of these, you get auto cutting, so it's much easier, of course, to pay for cuttings. These darker, larger droplets are also important for victory points. You see some of these areas have small numbers there. That is the number of victory points that you acquire at the end of the game for each space with a number that has a large dark blue droplet in it. The small light blue don't count. So right now, 3 points because of that. Hooray! The game is over when a player has collected a certain number of project cards, or when a player has exhausted their supply of flowers that they receive at the end of the game. When that happens, you complete the present turn and you play another turn. At the end of that one, the game is over and you count victory points. You will receive victory points from the points indicated on your cards, plus the points from your greenhouse, from each space that has a number and a large blue droplet, plus each thing that you still have at the end of the game, flower beds that you haven't used, cuttings that you haven't used, droplets that you haven't used. Each of those is worth half a point. At that point, the player with the high score wins the game. Succulent. This is a very simple game, very light, and maybe some of you will overlook it precisely because they think it's too light. And maybe some of you will think it's both too light and a little too fiddly at the same time, because it is very light. I'm picking up those flower beds and I'm putting them there to collect these cuttings, and I'm getting exactly that card and so on and so forth. It's very straightforward that way. At the same time, I'm doing this thing so I can collect 2 droplets, and I'm opening another area of the board, so I'm gonna put this at a flower bed there that gives me this at a droplet, and so on and so forth. Sometimes the collecting phase in which you're picking up all that you need, making sure of everything, collect the stuff, can take a little while. But then I also only played the game with 2 players, and so that wasn't too much of a problem. I'm not sure that I would be too happy playing the game with 4, which is the maximum allowed. I really think that it shines and works very well as a 2-player game. But again, that's an hypothesis because that's the only way in which I played it. But I liked it that way. And I thought maybe with more players you may have a little bit of analysis paralysis, again a little bit of logistics elements that slow down gameplay. But as a 2-player game, I like it very much, including the fact that I'm seeing exactly what you're doing and I'm gonna try to get in the way. With 2 players, it's really when you get a sense of what the opponent is trying to score next, and you're gonna put your gardener there, so you're giving them that dilemma. You can complete that project, but you're giving me a nice, chubby, big blue droplet. Or, of course, the other thing is that, well, then the opponent maybe has cuttings of a kind that by just altering things a little bit, they're gonna complete another project. So part of the fun is precisely in this, at least to me. As a 2-player, it feels very tactical because I'm pursuing my objectives, but with only one other player to spy on, to keep an eye on, then I can actually get a good sense of what you're doing, and I can try to incorporate that in my strategy. With 3 or 4 players, I wouldn't even waste my time doing that because I wouldn't be able to process all the information, and that means there will be a lot of stuff that happens like, what? Why are you doing that to me? Because you're able to process and I'm not. And so there will be, I think, more chaos. I like the tight tactical feel that you have when you play this game with only 2 players. It happened because of the pandemic that I played with only 2 players, but I like it this way very much. And again, I see how it can be, or it can look too simple and a little fiddly in the execution. I say technically probably these assessments are correct, but at the same time, I had fun playing it. To me, the elements fell into places. Everything was tight, but again, precisely because of the strong back and forth. Because my daughters also, the 8-year-old and the 9-year-old, also were able to figure out what I was trying to do. And put the gardener where it shouldn't be. Put the flower bed where I need the last cutting and there's no other cutting available right now. Now I had to stupidly go and cover the droplet somewhere to open another area, hoping for that last cutting that I need. In the meanwhile, before I'm done with that, my daughter completed something else. So with the strong back and forth, the gameplay is very interesting. I feel that if you play more players, it's gonna be like my thing, and I hope people don't mess it up too much and more like reacting to a situation that if you have 4 players, is gonna be pretty different when it comes back to you from what you had originally. So you have nice long-term or middle-term planning when you're playing with 2 players. So that's how I played it. That's how I actually enjoyed it. Yes, it is simple. Yes, it is linear. Yes, from time to time you need to double check that you picked up everything because you have those turns in which you pick up a lot. And maybe the other player, then the next turn, boop, I put down the gardener, I take 2 tiles, and I don't really do much. In that sense, again, it may feel a little bit anticlimactic. And if, again, that was my turn, and that's pretty much literally how long it would be. And then I had to wait for 3 players to do a lot of fun and cool stuff. I may be a little bit annoyed there. So again, although that's the only way I played it, I think that's pretty much how I want to play it in the future. Succulent as a 2-player game. In that sense, I liked it because it's simple, yes, it's linear, yes, but it's tight and it has some interesting decisions. And when you can really chain off some nice effects and create a synergy and figure out what the opponent is doing and sneak in just at the last moment to take away the cutting, to take away the flower bed, or to piggyback ride their project, those are fun moments. So Succulent, very light game. Some of you may not like it precisely because of that, but as a two-player game, I personally enjoyed it.